Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. All right, welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms, as well as go to our YouTube channel. Check us out on our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you will find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which is a podcast that I have with other girl dads and sometimes even daughters to talk about the daddy-daughter relationship in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. Also, you will find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast that you're listening to now. Both of those are available or are up on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, as well as two other podcasts that we have available that's there also. So we're aiming to bring you multiple podcasts on that platform as we continue to grow. So make sure you guys continue to support us on that podcast. Also, right now, I am giving away my ebook, Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self-Forgiveness. So if you go to our website at ebooksbyejames.com, right now we're giving away absolutely free our Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to for Self-Forgiveness, absolutely free. But while you are there, make sure you check out some of our other ebooks, including the Core 4, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father, as well as the ebook Start Your Podcast Now, which is there. And also our Males to Men ebook, which is our ebook that is sort of like a coming of age book, a male mentoring book for young men as they make the transition from being young men into adult males. So make sure you guys check that out. Again, right now, when you go to ebooksbyejames.com, you can get your free copy of Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self-Forgiveness. And while you're there, support us by purchasing one of our other ebooks that is amazing. All right. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Miss Jennifer. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Ernest?
I am good. I am good. First of all, let me say thank you for being here because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. And so
Thank you
we're
for
going to
having me.
jump. Oh, no problem. No problem at all. We're going to jump right into it. Do me a favor, Jennifer. Introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
All right. So I'm Jennifer Tolliver, as Ernest said. Right now, I am building a community that is aiding single mothers, specifically that are raising sons. Um, I've been hearing a lot of complaints about, the men of this generation, and studies show that 50% of households, of African American households, are with a single parent or single mother as the head of the household. So I
Mhm.
believe that if we can give mothers the tools that they need, I know, let me just say this now. We know women shouldn't raise a man alone. If we definitely believe that both parents are needed in the situation, but in the event, in the common case that it's not, I think that we need to make it the best situation possible for women that raising the men, so that we can have a generation of young men growing up that is improving upon itself.
Yes, yeah, cool, cool, cool. And so, speaking of which, you have a podcast
Yes,
um, called Raising Kings,
yes.
right?
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about the podcast, and then I'll go into my whole spiel. So,
Okay. All right. So you can find the Raising King podcast is on Spotify and YouTube. You can go to Raising Kings underscore. That's my Instagram handle, and everything is listed in the bio there. But yes, it's me and my 17-year-old son. I call him my business partner. It's not official yet, but it's, that's what it is. So it's basically me and him exploring and dealing with the different issues that mothers and sons deal with together. And he gives me so much great insight because, like, comparable to what I'm dealing with and what I'm trying to teach people, like, me and him, we bump heads. I'm like, okay, well, I think this is what it is. He's like, no, mom, you know, it's this. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have such open dialogue and a good relationship that we're able to do the podcast. And I think we are really helping people because you get an honest view of what your son may be thinking, because here's a 17-year-old son right here, and we've been
Mhm.
through a lot, so we have a lot of background with a bunch of different circumstances people may have. So it's a great show. We're just starting out, but we're just starting out, and it's really exciting, and I'm really appreciative for him for doing that with me. But yeah, check it out. I think it's really great.
All right, cool, cool. So that's where I came across you, right? On Instagram, of course, I'm there,
Mhm.
and I'm going through we swiping whatever, and I come across your podcast, and so I'm listening to it, and I'm listening to some of the clips that you have there, and I'm like, oh, I really like this, I really like it. So I reached out to you, because I again, I really liked it, the platform. I liked your point of view, and I like the way that you are presenting it, even presented the information in a way that it wasn't combative,
Right.
because that's so much in this era that we're in. It's like it got to be, me against you, man against woman, and it's like, dude, that's not what it is,
Yeah.
and even to the comment that you made just a minute ago about women not, mothers, single mothers not raising our sons or shouldn't raise our sons alone. And I definitely agree with that 100%. But I'm glad that I was watching one of the posts that you made, because you were getting that in your comments from men
Right.
saying, you should, do it alone or whatever. Yet and still, even when you spoke on it from a great point of view, the way I see it, and acknowledging that yes, that's not the alternative. Like, that's not our first
Right.
choice. You know
Right.
what I
It's
mean?
not
But
the
sometimes
ideal, but
it is where we are.
yeah.
And which is one of the things that I speak on when I'm talking to single mothers, is that yes, that may be the case, but at the same time, if there's not a biological father that is active as a mother, we still need to make sure that we have great male mentors in the lives of our children,
Right.
especially our sons, right? And so, and I'm not going to go through my whole thing, but I do want to just say this. When I'm talking about it, I say you want to look for a guy that's number one, that's already doing it, right?
Right.
And so we think about we're looking for these role models. We don't want to make just anybody a role model, but let's look for those who are already in it. Let's look for those who are involved in male mentoring programs. Let's look for those who are in those positions, whether it's an uncle or a cousin or a grandfather or whoever. Look for those guys that's already have already made that part of their life's mission,
And I
right?
totally agree with that because
Mhm.
I'm sorry, was I cutting you off at
No,
all?
no, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, in my experience, when you don't have a positive male role model, sometimes it's hard even to look at family members because it's for one, it's not technically their responsibility, and
Hmm.
depending on that family member, they may grow to resent you because they feel obligated to help you with your son, and they may or may not want to, but you're asking them, so they're going to do it because they're your family members. So just throwing any male in there, even if it's a good family member, you could be an awesome male
Hmm.
mentor, but it's better to, in my opinion, to go, like you said, with someone who's already a male mentor, somebody who's looking to be in that space and that study to be there and that knows about it. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I had a conversation with a young lady who's in that very position that you said. She has a father, she has brothers. And she asked them about stepping in with her son, whose
Hmm.
father wasn't around as much as he should be, and they just didn't want the job. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And she felt some type of way about it. And I, began to talk to her like, number one, like you said, it's not their responsibility. And as
Right.
much as we would want them to do it, you don't want to force them to do it, and you don't want them to do it resentfully. So
Yep.
just look for guys that's already in that space, because there's plenty of us out here. I'm a part of Champs
Yes.
Mentoring Group here in Chicago.
I
We
signed
have
up. It's
three
awesome.
locations. Oh, great, great, great. I'm glad
Yeah.
you did. I'm glad you did. We have three locations here in the Chicagoland area that we operate out of. I'm in the Calumet City location. We have, like, I think 25 mentees there. So there are guys who are making it a part of our mission to
Hmm.
be good role models and to be male role models to our boys. So we don't have to force anybody.
Right. And your
Just
son
look
doesn't
for
have to
those.
feel like
Yeah,
he's been, put on somebody because they could feel the vibes,
yeah,
they're like, oh, now
right.
I got to do. But,
And I want to address this too, since we're on this, because it was one of the other things that you said in one of your posts, which I talk about all the time too, which is do not be intimate with your with the father figure that you choose for
yes,
your sons, because that is just going to mess everything up. And so
it's
I
so
talk
important.
a lot about that, because again, once you bring this gentleman in the life of your children, in the life of your son, especially when he's a great role model, if you become intimate and that messes up you guys' relationship, a lot of the times the mom just be like, "Oh, we're not kicking it no more. Well, I
Yep,
don't want you, I don't want you talking to my son no
yep,
more." But now that just messes up his whole influence that
yep.
he has with his, with being mentored.
And not
So
only that,
you don't want to do that. You want to keep that separated so
yep,
that whoever's mentoring your son, let that be what that is, and
yep,
that way that relationship stays intact.
yep. And in many cases, your son has already lost a father figure in his own father or
Hmm.
other male mentors. And then he might be like, yes, I finally have somebody that I can rely on that's going to be a mentor for me. And then now, look, you know
Right.
what you're doing. You totally ruin that. So you're decreasing his faith and even the process of having the hope of having a mentor. Not only that, he's losing respect for you as a mother because you're putting frivolous, I mean, it's not the same in every situation, but you're putting like a frivolous wanting or dating situation above your son's needs for a mentor, and that's a, a boundary that shouldn't be crossed so lightly, I would say.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And I wanted to mention that because that was also something that you brought up. And again, that's one of the things that I talk about
Yeah.
when I'm talking to, single mothers, especially with the sons. Like, no, you just can't do it because it's again, it goes exactly to what you were saying. That's my main point is you take away the value of that mentorship from your son when you decide that okay, our relationship is over, so y'all relationship is over.
Right.
And again, if that son is already dealing with a sense of rejection from his own father, now you just separated the same thing with his mentor. And so we don't want to go down that street, right?
No, no, it gets darker and darker. We don't want to.
Right, right. So let's go back a little bit, right? And so you mentioned that you started the podcast. What prompted you to start the podcast? Because you could have did anything,
Right.
but you chose podcasting, and you chose to do it with your son. And so, what prompted that idea that what we're gonna express it in this way?
Well, I know that my experience as a single mother was tumultuous. There was a lot going on, and with my son being, so I was married at a young age, and I got married because I was pregnant with my son. So that was the beginning of the problem, but we we won't go there.
Yeah,
But so
right.
with that being said, he's been there with me through everything, through my whole crazy marriage, everything that happened with that. That's where his brother and sister are younger than he is. So he's been there through everything with me. And I've noticed that we share the same ideas on a lot of the things that I talk about. Our conversations that we have just in the car, there, I'm like, this could be like somebody could be helped with this. Like this could help someone. And other single mothers that I've dealt with, they mainly say they have an issue with the communication. They don't understand how to get to their son, how to communicate with them. And I think that's the basis of that's the start of the relationship or the foundation. Because I mean, if you can't even begin to communicate with them, how can you help him with anything? Or how can he trust you? How can you be a mentor for him, or even find a good male mentor to help your son, because you don't even know him, or where to start or what to tell the mentor or nothing. So I don't know, I just think that's very important. And to start young with your son, I think that's very important. I know I'm getting a little off topic from what you asked me, but these are all reasons why I wanted to do it. Because you see so many parents, they stop at like potty training age. They're like, okay, he's good. But no, like there's a lot more. Even as a single mother, it's hard, but you have to push yourself to do different things with your son, to get on his level, to communicate with him. And it's a lost, I won't say it's a lost gift, but you don't hear about it. Like there's not really a lot helping mothers or in supporting mothers, and like acknowledging that motherhood is a needed part of society to help the generations grow. Because you have a lot of different things, like you got the sexy red and all the Glorilla, that thing. You got that's cool. Then you got the women that are teaching you how to get a man, find a man. That's cool too. But there's nothing really that I could see. I don't know if it just might be my algorithms, but there's nothing really that I saw that's something real that's going to actually help a single mother raise her son, like not specifically that. So I thought that with my personal experience and with my son helping me by my side, that I can give a well-rounded assist to other single mothers out there like me.
Yeah, and I love it, and I love the viewpoint. Again, like I said, I came across you on the podcast, and I was just amazed, and so I had to reach out to you
Thank
to
you.
be
Thank you.
connected with you. No, no problem, no problem. But it goes into just everything that you just said about even all the thought that you put into it. Like this isn't something that you just did off of a whim. Like you really
Right.
thought about it, and thought about the space and the resources that you want to bring to this space. And
Hmm.
so I support you 100%,
Okay.
and wanted to have you here to expose you more, to my audience first of
Hmm.
all, but also just to kind of get to know you a little bit more myself, and the viewpoint and the mindset behind starting
Hmm.
the podcast. And so I think you have something very good. I think you have the beginning of the start of something that's very good, and
Thank you.
something that's going to continue to grow. And I'm going to support you as much as I can.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
no problem, no problem. So let's break this down a little bit. One of the things you mentioned about your son kind of going through the motions with you, like going through this
Hmm.
journey with you from the marriage, and all of the turmoil in the midst of it, and then coming out to the other side, and even mentioning that the whole reason for the marriage was because you ended up getting pregnant, which is not a unique story. Like a
Right.
lot of people, and I won't ask you how old you are, but I'm finna be 49 this year. And so I
I'm
know in
41.
my
I have no problem. I have no
I'm
problem
not
saying
gonna ask though. I know I know what you said, but I know just growing up
it.
in my own years, I have seen that in that era in which we grew up in, that was one of the things. Is like, all right, you pregnant?
Yep.
How do we make it right? Which it doesn't make it right. It actually turns you into a whole nother wrong. But that was how they thought at that time. Was like, all right, you pregnant? Let's get married
Yep.
and figure it out, and it doesn't always work. But
Right.
that being said, you go through this um you go through this season with your son is there with you through most of it, and being like you in your words crazy, the whole whatever it was that happened. How do you present in a conversation, even when referring to his dad, because I know a lot of times if there is a bad past and there are some bad things that happen, you get that space where it's like your dad is this or whatever,
Hmm.
and sometimes there is some male bashing, what I mean, or father bashing, however you want to look at it. So in your experience, what is your viewpoint on that, and how did you kind of navigate that space with your son?
Okay. So I never talk about anything that I haven't been through personally with
Mhm.
my son. That's telling a little bit, but but yeah. So I've made mistakes and learned from them. But so yeah, there was a point where it's like I thought with me and my son, since we had been through the same things and everything, like I would talk to him about situations that we were both there, but I speak in a negative way about his father. And then one day he came to me and he's like, "Mom," he's like, "Why am I even trying?" I'm like, "What you mean? Like, what are you talking about here?" He's like, "Well, I mean, if I'm just gonna grow up to be like my dad, or if it's a 50% possibility that I'm gonna grow up to be just like him, then why am I even trying?" And I'm like, "Well, where are you getting that from?" He's like, "Well," and this is when he was a lot younger, but he was like, "Well, you say dad is this and this, and that's half of me.
Mhm.
So if that's half of me, then I'm not going to be what you expect me to be. I'm not going to grow to be what I think, what he thinks, what he thought himself that he could grow into." It's like it was damaged by me speaking badly about his father, because I wasn't thinking like this, but he was thinking like, okay, that's half of me. Those are my genes. Like those are my genetics inside of me. Um, and later on, I was, just with my research and study, and I was able to clean it up a little bit. Like, you could change your genetics, and just because
Mhm.
the damage was done. I'm
Right.
like, but I had to go back and fix what I did and actually explain to him, why his father ended up the way he did. His father, your dad wasn't born this way. Things happened in his
Mhm.
life that caused him to be the way that he is now. He wasn't born that way. So it's not going to be a genetic thing with you. Like I had to go back and do it, but to avoid even having to do all that, it's best not to just, because it's hard. It's hard to keep your face straight and to remain neutral in a situation like this, or a situation like that. But it's just always best because they see that their father is half of them, and at the end of the day, they're going to find out on their own. Because a lot of times, the mother is like, no, that's not fair. Like, he thinks his dad is all that. Like, when my daughter was really, really young, she was like, Daddy, Daddy, I love my daddy. And you're like, but they're going to find out on their own. So my son said it was okay to share the story, but the day that he found out was when his dad had been, trying to turn him against me in the situation. And he said, well, I want to go live with my dad. Dad said I can go live with him, and it's just going to be us boys, just the guys, and we're going to live together. So I've been like, no, you can't live with your daddy, blah, blah, blah. So one day I said, you know what? I said, yeah, go ahead. You can live with your father. He was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. He was like, for real? I'm like, yeah. So we were living with my parents at the time because it was right after the divorce. So he get to being disrespectful to my parents. He go upstairs packing his PlayStation up. He's like, I'm out of here. Forget this. I'm going to live with my dad. So he calls his dad and he said, okay, Daddy, I'm ready. Mom said, yeah, let's go. I'm packed up. And of course, yeah, no. Dad said, well, son, there's some things, that whole thing. Yeah. And that's when he got to see his father's true colors. And my daughter also got to see on her own. So it's like, they will know, like you're not, and then not only will they figure it out on their own, but they're going to respect you more as a mother for keeping it classy, for not talking down on their father. So it's an all around good idea to not, like, if you need to vent, you have places, there's many places you can go talk about your baby daddy.
Right. I love it because I asked you the question on purpose, but you really just said exactly what I was going to say, right? Because that's the conversations that I've had, and that's one of the things I always say. Like they're 50% you, 50% the other person,
right?
And also their reality is not always your reality.
Right.
So, and I always say, just because a guy is a bad husband or a bad boyfriend doesn't automatically make him a bad father.
Right.
He may be a terrible husband, but a great father. You know what I mean? And so your experience may not be your child's experience.
Right.
And so that being said, you need to separate the two. And then even if it turns out that your experience is their experience, again, they will find out on their own. But it won't give them that complex of inferiority or feeling like they're not enough, because again, they are 50% this other person, and so by us not having that conversation, always and it goes both ways. Again, I'm a girl dad. Same thing with my daughter, having that conversation with my daughter, and even now she's 21, and so she's staying with me now, and us having conversations. And there's some situations that came about over the years, and she's like, well, mom is this, or mom said that, or whatever. And even now, I'm like, you would never get me to say, not that she's pressing me to, but I'm just like, I'll never say anything, bad about your mom, because it is what it is. You will begin to learn on your own the ins and outs of your relationship, the truth about our relationship. You will figure it out. You know what I mean? But you'll never be able to say, and this is my thing, what I teach my daughter, not just with my relationship, but with any relationship, you want to always make sure that you're doing the right thing. Right. Because at the end of the day, when it's said or done, they'll never be able to say you did this or you said that. And so that was what my thing with my daughter all her whole life. I'm like, no matter what your mom say about me, she'll never be able to say I said something about her or I tried to make her look bad or whatever, and whatever that true story is, that narrative, it'll come out. Right. Like you'll figure it out. So she's 21, and so there's a lot of figuring out that she's finding at this age.
A lot of discovery going on.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I ain't got nothing to say, you know. So yeah, it's not even necessary, and it's best for us not to do it. Because again, as parents, our first thought should always be what's in the best interest of our child. And
Right.
us venting to them is not in their best interest. And like you said, there's always an ear for that. You
Yes.
know what I mean? You can
Yes.
always find somebody that want to hear that, but
Right.
it shouldn't be your child. All
No.
right. So good. We talked about that. I wanna talk about something else, right? And so you talked about, you know, mothers and really having that kind of breaking that communication gap between, you know, them and their sons. And one of the things that you mentioned is that there is a difference between, you know, the male and female brain, and how, you know, they communicate, and what makes it a little easier for the mother and son to be able to communicate when they understand those differences. So could you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about, you know, that concept of the differences, and what can the mothers do in order to bridge that gap?
Okay. So, what made me study this topic is, like, I know me and my son have always had a great, um, great communication between us, but it was like not all the time, and it wasn't really making sense what the disconnect was. So, without being too technical, like our emotions are processed in our brains in the limbic system, but there's a big difference between how males and females
Mm,
process their emotions, their thoughts, their issues, their problems. So basically, with females, it's like when something happens, for the most part, we want to talk about it. Like, hey, let's talk about this right now. What's wrong? What's going on? Why are you looking like that? And the men, it takes them longer to process their emotions. And while we're trying to, fix the problem at what's wrong, they're not hearing us, and we're getting more frustrated because they're not receptive to us trying to help them. But really, they're just processing things a
mhm,
lot differently than we do. So the best thing for me, and just from what I've studied, is that you have to give males. Now these are blanket statements. I don't want to say all
mhm,
males, all females, but you want to give males time to process their emotions, their angers, their issues, and whatever is going on. Like, they're not. If the look is on their face, that does not mean they want to talk about it at this time. Like that,
mhm,
you need to give them the time and space to process what's going on. Because while we may be thinking like, I'm sad, they might not know that they're sad yet. They might not even
mhm,
have the emotional intelligence, which is another thing we talk about, but they might not have the emotional intelligence to name the things that they're feeling or to be able to process them in the first place. So us coming at them like that is going to cause them to shut down, even though we're coming from a good place and
mhm,
in trying to help them. So you just have to give them time to process. And the best thing, in my opinion, to do is to say, hey, I see that look on your face. Let me know when you want to talk. I'm
mhm,
here. If you want to come anytime, let me know. And then just give him that space and time to deal with it. Because I know as parents, we want to, and especially as mothers, we want to fix the problem. We see our son looking sad or down. We like, what happened? Who I got to kick? But it could be anything. So yeah, just I would say give your son time and just recognize that you process things differently as a male and female. And this could be, I'm no marriage counselor, but this is for a
mhm.
grown man too. Like,
Yeah.
we have differences in the way we process our emotions and the way we communicate, and we have to keep that in mind. And as women, I think it's easier for us to do the keeping in mind than it is
Mm,
for the men, since we're so much more used to processing our emotions, and we're a little bit better at it. So I think that we should be the ones to take the initiative to bridge the communication gap by understanding how men communicate things and process things differently than we do. And it's not their fault, it's in their brains. It's just how we were made up. It's not something that they're trying to do on purpose, or something that we're trying to do on purpose. It's just how we're made up. And I think that if we can, each side do more to understand those differences, we can understand each other more and begin to communicate more effectively instead of just talking at each other and hoping everything lands in the right place.
Yeah, and you are 100% right on with that. And I was going to say, you said you're not a marriage therapist, but I was going to say it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop with our
Right.
sons or any male in particular. You
Mm,
know, we just process things a little slower. And
right.
so I like what you said about just giving us that permission to say, hey, I know you're still processing,
Hmm.
but when you're ready to talk, so that way we know we have the time we need to process it, but we
Hmm.
also know that you're willing to listen.
Right.
And I think that's very important for our sons and for men at any age, really,
Right.
when dealing with it, because we do process things slower when it comes to emotions.
Right.
We can process facts a lot faster. You know what I
Right.
mean? When things is like black and white, it's like boom, boom, boom. Like, all right, we good. I can
Right.
process that right away. But when it comes to how we feel and our emotions, we are a lot slower in the way that we process that. And then not only are we slower with processing it, but we definitely slower with expressing it.
Right.
And so also, and this can be said too, with your son or even whatever male in your life, making sure that once they have given you a certain amount of trust where they're vulnerable enough to share, please don't weaponize what they say.
No, that
Please
was
don't bring
defeat
it
the
back
whole
and use
purpose.
that use that against them, because you 9 times out of 10 you won't get that chance again.
No.
And so you definitely want to be sensitive to the fact that, number one, it took him a while to process it, and
Right.
then he even had a mind to share it with me.
Hmm.
Not Don't let me now take that and use that as a weapon,
Right.
because that will affect him the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And I also want to touch on another thing that you said as a parent,
Hmm.
always wanted to fix things, right?
Right.
And so recently, even with my daughter,
Hmm.
having a conversation with her. She was at a job that I'm glad that she quit finally, but I didn't like the environment of the
Okay.
job.
Yeah.
And she would come home every day like, Dad, this happened and this person did this or whatever.
Oh
And I'm
Lord.
just like, go right into dad mode, like,
Right.
like
You
you said,
ready?
who I need to talk to. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And I'm telling her, well, you need to do this and you need to say this
Right.
or whatever. And one day she said, Dad, everything don't have to be a lecture. You know
Right.
what I mean?
I'm not asking you to fix it. I
Yeah,
want
you're
you to
like, I don't need you to fight my battles. I don't need you to tell me how to fix it. I just want you to listen. And I'm like, okay, you know.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so even as parents, with our sons or daughters, that's another thing, especially as they grow into being young adults, we got to give them the space to grow and the space to figure some things out on their own, because that is healthy. It's mentally healthy
Yeah.
for them to be able to problem solve and to work things through. And so, yes, we can't always be running to the rescue,
Right.
trying to fix everything for them.
And to that
Um,
point, you also, as a mother, head of household, it's not a really good idea to complain too much about different things going on in your life to your son, because, like you said, as a man, you're really wired to fix the problem. And
mhm.
even though this isn't a man, it's your little man. So if you're telling him, like, oh man, I had the bills piling up, I don't know why I can't afford it, or yeah,
Yeah.
my day was so hard, they're gonna take that in the heart. And one day, like the way that clicked for me was because even before I studied it, I was telling my son, like, man, I got to do this, something, whatever bill was due. And then he came the next day. He was like, Mom, I'm about to, I applied for these jobs and I got this, I'm about to go out and shovel. And he was just like really trying to, he was racking his brain trying to figure out a way to help me pay the bills, which that is definitely not his place. And I'm like, no, you focus on school. Like you're a kid, but the way that the male mind is wired, if you're a mother, especially a mother and a son relationship, and you're telling him all this stuff that's going on, he's going to want to fix it. And that's not something that's not a stress that needs to be on his
Mhm.
shoulders at all. So when it comes to your dating life, the money situations, things like that, he don't really need to know about, like stuff like garbage in the house, doing the dishes. Like, why is this garbage full? That, yeah, all that. But
right.
when it comes to, your personal life and your challenges, you just have to be careful because that's a little man right there. He's trying to, you don't know if he's up late at night thinking about how he's going to help you make the bill, or even like feeling like a burden on you, because he even said like, I won't eat as much. I'm like, oh Lord, like, no, like, no, not at all. So it's like, and I felt so bad because he had to stress himself even just through the night, worrying about, just a frivolous thing I said,
Right.
In conversation. So it's just important to watch what you say. It's a job. It's an intentional job, especially as a single mother, raising a son. And it feels so much like a job because nobody talks about it. Nobody talks. It's not normal anymore. People just, if your son looks fresh, he's got the fresh Jordans and the fresh fit, what's the problem? He's disrespectful. He's, he doesn't do his chores. He's running around crazy. But it's just not talked about anymore. And it feels like a chore almost, because you're like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. But yeah.
And I love what you said. Two things that you said, that number one, taking out the garbage, washing the dishes, all of those things are responsibilities. Right. And so those things have to be in place because we have to teach our sons to be responsible, because the mindset is at some point he's going to be responsible for not only himself, but he's going to be responsible for somebody's daughter.
Yes.
He's going to be responsible for his own children at some point in his life. And so we do have to give him that responsibility, that sense of responsibility early. However, like you said, not putting your responsibilities on him, because as a young man, we do, as males, period, we do, fall into that mix to fix it mode, and we want to fix the problems. And even that being said, sometimes that could lead to, our teens, especially in the teenagers, for making some decisions that they shouldn't make,
Yes.
Especially when it comes to finances, because It's like, hey, mom is struggling, but I know John down the street got a way for me to make some quick money.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so when we put that stress on them, they make those decisions that we don't want them to make. And so we want to make sure that we're making that difference between, okay, this is your responsibility, taking out the garbage and things of that nature. These are your responsibilities, and I expect you to uphold it, but at the same time, not putting our responsibilities on top of that. So I again, the more I talk to you, the more I'm like, I'm loving this platform. I'm loving your point of view. So I just think you have the start of something very amazing, and I'm so proud of you. And again, I'm going to do whatever I can do to help you out. So that being said, no problem. I want to thank you for being on. I want to thank you for taking out your time to even express your mind and your heart behind the platform that you're building. That being said, I want you to leave us with a word of advice, inspiration, maybe a word for the mothers, however you feel. And definitely leave us with your social media handles and things of that nature of how we can follow you and support you. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you guys check me out on my website, which is dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, because my mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So you can find out a lot of the things that I have going on at the website or on my website, including how to book me to come out to be a speaker or to facilitate a workshop at your school or organization. So again, that's dealhealfulfill.org. Also, go to ebooks by ejames.com right now to get your free copy of the Forgiving Me ebook, the 4-step guide to self-forgiveness. But while you're there getting your free copy, make sure that you check out There are other ebooks that we have available, including From Males to Men, which is a male mentoring ebook for young men, and the Core Four, which is the four core values that every daughter should get from her father, as well as the other resources that we have there. Again, that's ebooks by ejames.com. Make sure you guys go there and check us out. Um, our inspirational t-shirt line. We have inspirational t-shirts, including our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. There's one for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And that can be found at dealtohealtees.com. That's deal, the number two, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. So again, go to deal, the number two, healtees.com in order to get your inspirational t-shirt. Last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month. And we talk about everything regarding forgiveness, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world, just everything around forgiveness, what it means to forgive. And we have these virtual workshops every other month. They're absolutely free, but the information we share is priceless. And I think you guys really want to check that out. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our next free virtual workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission to sign up again for our free virtual workshop. So whenever you're listening to this podcast, either a workshop just ended or there's one coming up, but you can again sign up for the free virtual workshop again on forgiveness. And I believe that the information is priceless, even though the workshop is free. So make sure you guys check that out. That being said, Miss Jennifer, again, I want to thank you so very much for being on, for coming on, for sharing your story
Thank you.
and your expertise and your mind. Just hearing again the passion behind that you have for this platform that you're building. I really appreciate you. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Okay. So I just want to tell the moms that my son will tell you there's no such thing as being a perfect mother. It just doesn't exist. And a lot of nights I stay up with anxiety thinking that, I'm not doing enough. I'm not a good enough mom. I could be doing this. That I should have did that. I didn't do this. So you're not alone. That's just part of it. That doesn't mean you're a bad mom. There's no such thing as a perfect mom. But this journey as a single mother is difficult, but it's okay. It's okay. You're not alone in it. But we just have to take care of ourselves because we can't do this without first pouring into ourselves. I talk a lot about self-care. So you can't do all this with an attitude. So you gotta, get yourself together, make sure you're good, and then you can pour into your son. But I just want to encourage you that there's no such thing as a perfect mother, a perfect woman, or any of that. But just stay focused, stay encouraged, and if you want to be a better mom, then you're already a good mom, in my opinion. If you care enough to want to learn how to communicate with your son, you're a great mom. So yeah, I just want to share that encouragement. And you can find me mainly right now I'm on Instagram. It's at raisingkings_. And we have so many resources for single moms. We've got PDF downloads for you, tips on how to communicate with your son. And these are things that you can start using today. Like when you download them, they're free. Once you get it, there's simple steps that you can implement starting as soon as you get it. So yeah, go check those out and send me DMs, comments, questions, whatever you have, reviews. I would like all of that in building my community. So yeah, and I thank you so much, Ernest, for having me on here. Your podcast is so awesome and everything you're doing is so great. And I'm very proud of you and I appreciate everything you're doing here.
All right. I appreciate you also. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.